I just want to add one other part to that picture, and that is the ever-increasing number of seniors who are on the edge of becoming homeless.
Yeah, no, it's anecdotally, the numbers aren't showing it yet that I have, but anecdotally, I'm seeing more and more seniors in homelessness. And I think it's more terrifying. In a piece we're going to have in the Tyee next week, I was in Surrey working with outreach workers when a woman in her 60s or 70s showed up. She had stayed in shelters in Vancouver and North Van and was simply uncomfortable in shelters with a lot of drug users and small-time criminals, and moved out to Surrey to try to find someplace safer. And I think it's particularly hard on seniors, particularly hard on senior women, and I think we're seeing more and more of it. I agree.
A couple more now.
Okay, over here.
Just wondering if you think the mayor's idea of ending homelessness, I don't know what timeline you gave yourself, I can't remember.
2015.
Do you think that's possible or realistic? A little hard on it.
Yeah, I think it's doable. The missing piece is the federal government. Okay, so we have this interesting moment in Vancouver now where we do have a mayor who said he wants to end homelessness by 2015, which is amazing. He actually ran on it. People don't run for office on any homelessness very often. And if it doesn't work, he's going to have a hard time explaining that.
Well, it's bullshit.
Well, no, I don't think it's bullshit. I mean, I think, first of all, he has put a lot of resources of what the city does have behind it. And the city is coordinating other efforts in a way that they had not been coordinated previously. Secondly, I think he's aware that there's a lot of effort coming from the province towards this. The province, I agree, behaved very badly in this government in its first and part of its second term. But in the last year, the province has put a lot of resources into this. We have an extraordinary moment, I think, in British Columbia history in that both the mayor of Vancouver and the premier have personal family histories that involve addiction and mental health. They understand these issues really well. These were part of what shaped them as men. And I think if we as a community give them an environment that's ready to solve this problem and bring them solutions and are ready to work with them, they will do it. The huge missing piece is the federal government. And in other countries where Housing First has been successful, and I'm thinking of the US and the UK, the federal governments kick in some money towards Housing First housing. Here in Canada, the federal government doesn't kick in anything. We don't even have a housing plan. We're the only G8 nation with that housing plan. And so when you ask, can it be successful, I kind of want to say, if Ottawa comes to the table in the next year or two, yes. If Ottawa does not come to the table, or some other significant source of funding, and I don't know what it would be, doesn't come to the table in the next year or two, it's going to take longer, maybe much longer, for the province to pay for it out of its own pocket. And the province is broke too right now.
What about Campbell when he was mayor? He was overseeing the city when a lot of these problems were mushrooming. And he lives in Point Grey. He doesn't see people sleeping on his sidewalk. Maybe I don't know.
He lives in Ottawa now.
I mean, you'd have to ask the premier himself. In my conversations with him, I think at this point, he understands this issue fairly well. He understands what it takes to solve it. Did he understand that when he was elected? No, I don't think so. Did he understand that was mayor? No, I don't think so. I think the problem was different than it was largely hidden in the SRO rooms. My sense is not that he's going to lead us to this solution, but my sense is that if others lead to the solution, we have a premier who's going to get on board.
And take credit for it.
Yeah, take credit, fine. I'll give him all the credit if he does it.
If it works, sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, politicians are like children, right? You have to nurture the behavior you want to see. And speaking of politicians.
I was just going to add to the point about the cuts to social services was that at that time we were also building 1,200 units a year in housing even after the federal government had pulled out, and we haven't come close to that number despite what the province has been doing. I like your point about human rights. Canada has signed on to optional protocols around human rights, and even when the legal cases come forward, they don't say you have the right to housing. They say you have the right to sleep outside in the park. And so I think putting forward something around that would be great. And one more point, but I've forgotten it, so I'll stop there.
Good. You?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it seems like with all the ideas and solutions, that the key is money. A lot of times getting behind it. And we pay the workers and try to help the homeless getting affordable housing. So would it seem that we're just going to get, like, as far as the mayor was talking about, in saying ending it by 2015, he's got his own ideas. There's some ideas that you've shared that I think are very valid as well. So is it to get behind his ideas and just get people to notice, I guess, right?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
I think also we have to recognize money is not quite as much of a problem as it is with some other issues. We are already spending $1 billion a year. And we're spending it primarily through municipalities and secondarily through the province in these emergency services, because that's who pays for emergency services.
So shifting the money.
If we can somehow find a way to shift that money, and it's a very complicated thing for government to do, but to shift that money to a more proactive solution in providing housing and treatment, we can spend less, and we would spend it more at the provincial and federal level than at the municipal level, which would even out the cost of this in a more fair way in many senses. So finding the political will to pull off that shift, I think, is the trick. I'm not disagreeing. I also think having a community who's ready, having a community who says, yeah, we agree, we want to do this, we have the will to do this, we will back politicians who are going to make some tough decisions around doing this.
Getting enough people to agree
Yeah.
that we make that choice and go ahead with it.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. How instrumental do you see the role of nonprofits being in terms of, I guess, reversing the traditional charity model and kind of fosters independence? So, like, maybe seeking other ways, like social enterprise and stuff. Do you see that as like a pillar or auxiliary?
Yeah, you have to put kind of nonprofits into two categories. So first of all, an awful lot of services are being delivered through nonprofit vendors, like the Portland Housing Society and Atira, and that is the model, is for the province to fund nonprofits to do the work that would have been done by government workers in years past. And so I view them basically as simply a kind of privatized government employee, and I think they're an absolutely valuable part of this. But they're different than nonprofits like Streets of Home or other foundations that are actually trying to bring new money to the table rather than be essentially nonprofit service delivery companies. The nonprofits who are service delivery companies like Portland are absolutely critical, and I would say have done a fantastic job of stepping up to the opportunities here. The kind of new foundation-style nonprofits like Streets of Home, I think, are still an open question. We haven't seen them do anything effective yet. But it's only been a year or two. Maybe they'll find a way to pull it together. You?
The model to me seems to be building a permanent underclass, though, because we have a housing policy or a program that sort of leaves the middle out. And the province has been notoriously bad at helping anybody who simply has an affordability problem. Like the worse off you are, the more likely you are to be housed, but what you're going to be housed in is something that's below our usual standard of living. So, I think it's a huge issue of, been mentioned many times, that we haven't been building affordable housing, and we've got more and more people falling out of basically what our standard of living would be.
And it's a really good point, and it's all connected and it's all thorny. If you really get down to the brass tacks, what Rich Coleman has done here is shift money that had previously been allocated for family housing, low-income family housing, into these homelessness programs. And he's funded low-income family housing through rent supports. I think there's about 8,000 families on rent support here. And by shifting that capital cost, that's how we bought these SRO hotels. It's how he's building the other new hotels. His decision, and you can criticize it as right or wrong, but it is what the province is doing, is to put the money at this point into housing, have the idea that there'll be a second wave of treatment to some degree, and then probably thinking long term of that, beyond that. It would be nice to do everything at once. I don't think it's an entirely bad model to first just get everybody off the street, and then recognize that our problem before is that we didn't treat them when they were in SROs. And and then really build community will for treatment around that. And if we had 10,000 stable people ready to enter the workforce and their problem, or entering them and working, and their problem was that they didn't have appropriate housing, we'd have a real political will to address that problem just a few years from now. I mean, I agree it needs to be addressed now, but at the moment, the people who are dying at the rate of 1 every 12 days seem like the people I want to deal with first, which is not to take respect away from the other needs.